Hey everybody, Sensei James Wall here along with Sensei John King, and we have Sensei Caitlin behind the camera for us today here at Wall to Wall Martial Arts. We're going to be covering the techniques for semester 4 of our senior judo curriculum. We're going to be starting with the throwing techniques, so let's go ahead and get right into those real quick. So our first technique in this semester is ko-uchi gari, the small inner reap. And as I've said in many previous videos, if you've watched them, there are lots of different ways to do all of these throws. This is not meant to be comprehensive or definitive. We're going to be showing one or maybe two of the main ways that we typically teach these, the basic application of these, and an acceptable way to do them on our promotion test for your next rank. So ko-uchi gari, the small inner reap. So the basic concept of this throw is that I'm going to have my right foot forward and my opponent's right foot is forward, and I want to get my right foot behind his foot on the inside and reap it out. One good way to practice this is using what we call a fencer step. So with a fencer step, I'll move my right foot forward and then bring my left foot up right behind it. So again, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, just like that. I wouldn't want to put my right foot out and keep my stance really wide like this. I'm going to lose a lot of driving power from my back leg. But if I bring my back leg in, now I can drive forward strongly if I need to. So it's 1, 2, and then here in this area there's a lot of difference in opinion. Some people say take the bottom of your foot and get the bottom of his heel and pull forward. Some people say go back of your calf to the back of their calf, and then still other people say the back of the knee to the back of the knee. For me personally, it doesn't really matter. It's pretty much all going to get you to the same place. The important thing here is it is a reap, so we are going to kick, reap the bottom foot out and push the top over. It is not a hook or a gake or a dash. So a gake or a dash or a hook, I would step and put my foot down on the ground and keep it there and then shove him over it. But with a gari or a reap, I'm actually going to reap it forward. With my upper body, sometimes I like to slightly pull him up and toward me, and then as I reap, give him a nice shove back. So the throw might look something like this. We can also do that from a little bit of a randori type situation. So maybe we're gripping and moving, and I fencer step in to catch him. Another way to practice this, it's in some ways more basic, but in some ways more complicated or more advanced, is to have my partner stepping forward and backward with me, and then to take a half step turn with my left foot and reap his foot out as it comes forward. So in that case, when we hit the timing right, he's going to feel like he hit a banana peel and his foot just goes out from under him. So by myself, as a solo drill, that would look something like this. Step and turn, hook, and pull that foot forward with my reap as I drive him back. And we could also do that moving backwards in a straight line. Here. So two different ways you could work ko-uchi gari, small inner reap. Our next throwing technique, o-uchi gari, the large inner reap, kind of the big brother to ko-uchi gari. O-uchi gari over the years has become one of my favorite throws. Basically for me and for the way that I like to do it, I like to use it if I got my right foot forward, my dominant foot forward, if I notice that my opponent has his left foot forward. So in this case, our feet are very, very close together. I find this to be a real good opportunity for using that fencer step again to get close and then reaping out his leg. So in this case, for the o-uchi gari, I would step in 1, 2. Now with my right foot, I kind of imagine drawing a circle behind his leg. So the foot goes out, circles around, pull his leg out, and then he drops down. So my motion would be 1, 2, big reaping circle. And I like to go back of knee to back of knee. Again, some people say calf to calf, some say heel to heel. Any of those is fine as long as you are actually reaping that leg and pulling it forward. Now, one real important point to make with o-uchi gari in particular. If I'm going to fencer step in for this o-uchi gari, put your left foot forward, it's really important that I don't let myself stay sideways or get turned sideways, because in this position, my opponent can very easily push me off balance and throw me instead. So what we refer to this as is closing the door or closing the gate. I want to imagine my shoulders as a gate or a door. And here it's open, but if I turn here, then the door or the gate is closed. And one thing we also tell our students is sort of imagine that you want to look over their shoulder at the area on the mat where you want them to fall. If you always try to do that, it'll sort of remind you to close the door. So when I step in for this throw, 1, 2, and hook, here I'm only affecting his balance a little bit, but if you notice his posture and watch his hips and his upper body, as soon as I move this shoulder, as soon as I close the gate, he immediately starts to fall, even without me really doing much with my upper body. Just by pivoting, it changes the dynamic, it changes the relationship, and it puts a lot more of my weight downward on this hip and this leg. So with o-uchigari, particularly this version, the fencer step version, you really want to close the door or close the gate. So again, we step in 1, 2, hook, close the door, and push. Here, just like that. Now again, we can do a randori type entry, or another real popular way would be what we call a circle step. With the circle step, I will step with my left foot and pull him around, making him take that step. So as I pull him around, I can reach the leg out from underneath, just like that. And that is a perfectly acceptable way to demonstrate this as far as for our promotion standards. So o-uchigari, the large inner reap. Next technique on this semester is kibisu gaishi, the heel trip reversal, sometimes also called a heel pick or an ankle pick. The way that we typically do this is utilizing a grip break here, two-hand grip break from his power hand. So I will break the grip and I'll kill the grip. My right hand will punch back over, establish a power hand grip. I'm going to step in deep to the center with my right foot, and as I do that, I'm going to drive his arm down right here by his thigh and his hip. Once I do that, I can release. I'm going to make a hook here with my fingers, and I'm just going to hook down, and then right at his heel, I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to pull it forward like that. So for us, we differentiate this from grabbing behind the knee, a single leg takedown, what we would call a dead tree drop. A kuchiki daioshi would be grabbing the knee. For this technique, kibisu gaishi, we are grabbing at the heel, and we're pulling forward here. That also starts to hyperextend his knee a little bit, which is good. And then I'll use this hand, along with this push, I'll drive in, and I can push it down just like that. So again, I'm also applying just a little bit of a body check. I'm using my shoulder and chest and kind of hitting him right there as I drive in to kind of help propel him backwards. Okay? Last technique on this sequence, or for the regular set of throws for everyone to practice this semester, is going to be Dayashi Harai, the advancing foot sweep. Now, possibly more than any other throw that I know would be this throw having more variations. There are so many different ways to do Dayashi Harai, forwards and backwards, and with this step and with that step. We're not going to go into a dozen different ways to do it. We're going to cover the very, very basics of Dayashi Harai, and then you'll have a chance to work on different versions and variations in your class at different ranks. So, conceptually speaking, for Dayashi Harai, what I want to do is use the bottom of one of my feet to push his foot across his body. So if that foot were forward, I would be sweeping it across. If the other foot were forward, it means I would push it this way. So no matter which of his legs we're sweeping, it's always going to go across his body. So we're not kicking his leg to the outside. We're kicking it or sweeping it across like that. Now, I always recommend for beginners and novices when you're first learning Dayashi Harai that you do it with your lead foot versus their lead foot. So in this instance, if he has his right foot forward, my right foot won't work for Dayashi Harai. If I were doing it off of my left foot, it would take a lot longer to get there. Now, it is very possible to do Dayashi Harai like that. I will often throw it like that, But it does take a lot more timing and skill. So I typically don't recommend starting off throwing dayashi from the rear leg or trailing leg, but rather the front leg. So I'm going to have my opponent, in this case, come out as a lefty, because I'm as a righty. I've got my grip here and here. And a simple drill that we practice is called the twitch. And what I'm going to do is sort of a fencer step and just put the bottom of my foot right against his ankle. And I'm trying to wrap my toes around the back. We can actually turn around here so the camera can see that better. So I'm here, I'm going to let my left foot come up close, and then my right foot's going to strike out, boom, here, like that. Not sideways, and I'm not kicking it with my toes. It's the bottom of my foot. And I want to be low. I usually try to tell my students when they're first starting, it's okay if you feel your little pinky toe sort of dragging on the mat, here, just like that. Now, if all of our opponent's weight is down on that foot, it's going to be very hard to reap it out or sweep it out. We want to try to have his foot either as it's rising or just before it settles down. Those are the two best times. And we want to use the upper body like a steering wheel. I want to turn his shoulders in the direction that he's falling. So one real good way to practice this is me and my partner stepping together. So he's going to step back as I step forward. And what I want to do is sort of get a feel or a rhythm here for how he is stepping. Again, this is just a learning tool. And I'll kind of start to count, and I'm going to sweep his foot out from under him on his third step forward right before he puts it down. So what I'll have to do is kind of hesitate with my foot. Instead of stepping back, I'll wait so I can sweep across like that. This is a really good way to practice dayashi. It gives the students really get a feel for the timing, because if you do it too soon, then there's no weight on his foot, his leg moves, but he doesn't fall. If you do it too late, he plants his foot, and you try to sweep it, and it just doesn't move. So the timing becomes crucial. And I cannot overemphasize how important it is to be patient when you're working on this technique. Dayashi Harai is a very precise technique. It takes a lot of work to get the timing right. You don't want to force it. What you don't want to do is try to chop their foot out from under them. So when people first start this throw, many times you'll hear one foot hitting the other foot. They're really kicking their partner, kicking their opponent, and that's really not good judo. It's not what we want to do. We want to use technique, not brute force. So again, we can work on our twitch here, and we can also work stepping with our partner, just like this. And we can count that off. 1, 2. Now I'm going to wait for him and sweep on 3. And of course you can do that with both feet. Now later you can develop and work on sweeping from the rear foot, sweeping in a circle, moving backwards and forwards in straight lines. The main thing to remember is I'm either going to sweep here, or if the other foot is forward, I'm going to sweep here. All right, so that's a very, very high level, very basic overview of Dayashi Harai. One of my favorite techniques, but it does take a lot of work. Let's run from that right over into a variation that in this semester the advanced students have to work on. This is what we refer to as the sticky foot Dayashi Harai. And this is really the main way that I tend to throw Dayashi Harai, and I've had a lot of success with it in randori and competition. So for the sticky foot, I'm going to utilize that twitch, that real quick little step inward and making contact with his foot that I was describing earlier. And what I want to happen is I actually want to make contact with his foot, and I want to pause for a brief second and see if I get a reaction from him. What I hope happens is that he tries to pick up his foot or tries to step or move. So he may not. If he doesn't, I'll just do the twitch here, and then I'll just come back out. But what I hope happens is that between touching his foot and kind of working his upper body, I hope he lifts his foot up just a fraction. If he does, then I'll start to push it across, and notice that I'll hop, hop, hop with my other leg so I can continually push his leg further. And I'll kind of take him in a circle to finish the throw. So I twitch in, his foot comes up, I start to push, and then I hop and chase him. That. And each time I hop, I want to turn his upper body a little more and push his leg a little more. So I'm going to push his leg one way and turn his body the other way. and I just hop, 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 hop. Let's see that again from here. So I twitch, foot comes up just a bit. I want to push that way and chase it. And it's really important. If I don't affect his upper body, we'll just hop. Nothing's really going to happen here. But if I affect his upper body, steering wheel style, I can usually get the throw to work for me. So we refer to that as a sticky foot dayashi. I've heard other people call it that. It's not the technical Japanese judo name, but it makes sense and it works for me. I imagine my foot is just stuck to my partner's foot. And it works real well for me, particularly with dayashi harai. All right, last technique in this set, O Soto Makikomi, large outer wraparound. And again, this is for the advanced players, brown belts and above, to work on. Now, I recommend with O Soto Makikomi, if you have a crash pad or landing mat, that you use it. It is a very powerful, very hard throw. We're going to throw it here, but you'll notice what I'm going to do is sort of catch myself on my forearm a little bit and hold myself up so I don't land full force on my partner. So, with O Soto Makikomi, there's many ways this can happen. For me, what usually happens is I have taken a high collar grip, my thumb is in the collar, my preferred grip, and my partner has ducked under that grip to avoid some of the power. When they do that, what I like to do is release and drive that hand over their back, grabbing their belt, and pull them in close to me. Here, just like this. My right foot is forward, my left foot is back. I've got my hips low and my knees bent. I am mindful of single leg or double leg takedown attempts here because I'm slightly exposed, particularly with that front foot. What I'm going to do is let my right foot hook behind his knee. I'm going to tuck my head in, hop, 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 and then comes the wrapping, the makikomi part. I'm going to wrap and fall. And again, I caught myself here on my forearm just to be polite and nice to my partner. In reality, we would have fallen as hard as we could and then went immediately into a pin. So for us, we refer to this as O Soto, large outer makikomi, wrap around or wrapping throw. For us, it is a combination of O Soto Gari and makikomi. There are other people who do O Soto Makikomi as a forward throw. That is not wrong. It's just not what we do. For us, makikomi is a forward throw. O Soto Makikomi is kind of a rear or rear corner throw. For us in our curriculum, if someone from another school were to come and demonstrate it the other way around, I would not tell them they were incorrect or fail them on a promotion test. Lots of different interpretations. So again, we're here. He ducks under, control the belt, hook, tuck your head, hop, 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 big wrap, and throw. And again, I'm just catching myself here because we're not landing on a crash pad. All right, those are the primary throwing techniques for semester 4 of our adult judo curriculum. All right, guys, we're going to go over the counters and defenses and combinations to throws here in semester 4 of the adult curriculum. We only have a few techniques to go through. So the first one is going to be a counter when your opponent attempts to do dayashi harai, advancing foot sweep. And the counter that we're doing in this case is what's called tsubami gaishi, the swallow in flight counter or swallow in flight reversal. We'll do that from both sides. So in this instance, I have my right foot forward, and Sensei John has his left foot forward, so he wants to do dayashi harai, just like that. He wants to sweep my foot out from under me and knock me down. So for tsubami gaishi to work, what I have to do is actually let my foot make a small, quick circle. I'm not drawing it all the way up here. If I do that, it's too late. This foot goes by, he goes ahead and resets his balance, everything is out of the way, I've missed it. But if I can manage to make a very small, quick circle from here to here, then I might be able to actually join with the force that he's already started and kind of redirect it and add a little of my own and perform my own foot sweep. Basically, I'm countering his foot sweep with my foot sweep. This is all about timing. Just like I said earlier with dayashi harai and the sticky foot, the timing is everything. With foot techniques, ashiwaza, timing is very, very important. So, he's going to attempt this dayashi harai. We'll do it about half speed. As soon as he makes contact and starts to push, I want a small circle and make contact and finish my own foot sweep. Let's see it from the other side. So we're here. So he tries his foot sweep, circle, and sweep like that. So a really good drill for this is for us just to take turns alternating. So he's going to put his foot out there and just kind of put pressure on my foot. Then I'll move in a small circle to him. Then he'll do it to me. And I'll do it. And he'll do it. And I'll do it. And he'll do it. Now notice that we're not crashing into each other. We're not just eating each other's feet into a big bloody pulp. It's okay if occasionally there's a little impact, but you're really not trying to batter his foot down. It's technique, it's finesse. So Tsubami Gaishi, swallow and flat counter, and of course you can work it on the right side and the left side. Just remember what you're doing is a very small step, and when you make contact, it's with the bottom of your foot, not with the side. Okay, next we have two combinations. In this case, it's one throw to another throw. They both use ko-uchi-gari as their starting throw or their initial attack. So ko-uchi-gari we covered earlier in this video, it's the small inner reap. This first one is going to be ko-uchi-gari to heel pick, or ko-uchi-gari to kibisu gaishi. So for ko-uchi-gari, we said I could fencer step in and I could knock that leg out and throw it down. But sometimes they pick their leg up and try to step away. Or maybe I don't want to knock him down. Maybe I want to use my foot and leg like a third arm, and I want to actually pick his up so I can grab it. And that's what's happening here. Either he tries to step out and I hook him, or I lift it up and hook him. And when I say hook, I'm using like a meat hook of my hand here. I'm not trying to grab his pant leg as it passes through the small space. I'm throwing a hook out into a big wide area. So I don't have to be quite as precise. I know his leg and his heel are going to be down there somewhere. So first one I hit and he tries to pick that leg up, so I hook him and I put him down. Now the second one, I'm actually going to hit that leg, lift it up, if I do it right, lift it up and then grab it like that. So sometimes we throw the ko-uchi and they don't move, they just plant. But I might be able to still pick it up. I couldn't push him backwards, but I can lift his leg and finish with the heel pick. So, ko-uchi-gari to kibisu gaishi, or a heel pick. The next one is ko-uchi-gari to o-uchi-gari. In this case, I attack for ko-uchi-gari, and my opponent is fast enough that he actually steps backwards. So he evades my first attack. So I attack, and he steps back. But now my right foot is really close. It's already entered deep enough for o-uchi. All I need to do is do the other half of my fencer step, hook, and close the door. Here. And I can easily finish with o-uchi. Let's see it from the other side. So I attack the ko-uchi, he steps out, fencer step, hook, and remember, as I reap this leg, I want to look at where I want him to fall. So, ko-uchi-gari to o-uchi-gari. And of course, advanced players work on these in a randori setting, back and forth stepping, circular step, in any different way that you can. Remember, not everything is always going to be just done static. Make it as dynamic as you can. Make it work for your body type. All right, that covers all the stand-up techniques for this semester. Hey guys, Sensei James Wall here, and we're going to be going over the pins, the chokes, and the joint locks for this semester in our adult judo curriculum. I got Mr. Sean here who's going to be my uke today, so we're going to get right into it. That way. So our first pinning technique for this one is going to be katagatame, the shoulder hold. We'll get you to turn your head toward the camera, Mr. Sean. So with katagatame, you don't necessarily have to start in keisagatame, but it is a good starting position just for learning purposes, I find. So sometimes we're here in keisagatame and the person manages to pull their arm free or pop this arm out. So instead of trying to fight to get it back under our armpit for keisa, we could just grab it and we could push it across his head. And what I'm trying to do here is get it across his nose and his eyes as much as I can. If I can make it hard for him to see and hard for him to breathe, those are all good things for me. And I'm gripping it here on the tricep area below the elbow so he can't just bend his arm and escape. And I'm going to drive this arm through as far as I can, so I want to really be deep. I'm going to drop my shoulder down into the tricep, and I'm going to use it to take the place of this hand so I can then gable grip and hold on tight here. If From that position, I could hold. This would be a pin. This would be katagatami, the shoulder hold. Or, a lot of times in the traditional version, we see this knee pop up beside the opponent and then this foot come out. Just remember, in this version, we wouldn't want to overextend ourselves in any direction to make it easy for him to bridge. We still want most of our force pushing downward on his shoulders to really try to keep them pinned to the mat. You will also see people do this by placing their hand in the crook of their elbow. I typically only utilize that version when I'm trying to get a submission, maybe to enforce this as a choke or even sometimes as a shoulder lock. So for promotion purposes, for katagatami, the shoulder hold, we just want to grab this gable grip right here. Okay? So that's katagatami shoulder hold. Next pin is going to be kami shiho gatami. This is the upper four-corner hold. This is the standard version, not a modified or not a variation. So in this case, I'm directly above my opponent's shoulders. I'm going to slide one hand under each shoulder, and if I can, I'm going to grab his belt. If this belt weren't there, I could grab the gi, I could grab the pants, I could even just hook under his armpits if it was a no-gi situation or his belt was too loose to really be a tight place to hold it. So I'll put my chest down here and here, grab his belt, and then I'm going to cinch in nice and tight. I like to do it with my knees on the mat, spread wide and hips lowered. This can also be done with the legs outstretched in this way. I prefer this version myself. I just find it keeps me more maneuverable. But either way is acceptable. So this is kami shiho gatami, the upper four-corner hold. Let's go right into the choking techniques. First one this semester is tsuki komi jime. This is the thrust choke. This can be done in a lot of different ways. We're going to be showing it from the full mount, and typically that's how it's demonstrated for promotion purposes, but not the only way it could be done. I'm going to have Mr. Sean slide back this way just a bit, head toward the camera. So I'll just be in full mount here, and basically I'm going to use my right hand, and it's going to grab his lapel, fingers inside like this. And I want enough slack in the lapel that it can sort of wrap around his neck. I wouldn't necessarily want to be right here so that I'm driving my knuckles into his throat. That really would be against the rules. But I could grab here so that I'm wrapping that around. Then my thumb will grab the opposite lapel at about chest level. It's going to make a downward pulling motion as this hand pushes or thrusts toward his ear and the mat. So I would grab here, proper amount of slack. I would push and pull here until he taps. So it's a pushing and pulling motion. A lot of times people make the mistake of pulling upward like this, and that will work, but it's not as effective as pulling downward like this. So tsuki komi jime, the thrust choke. Next choke is sode guruma jime, the sleeve wheel choke. In BJJ, you'll also hear this referred to as an Ezekiel choke. This can be done again in a lot of different positions. I'll show it from the full mount. So right arm is going to go behind his head. I'm going to take the thumb of that hand, put it inside my sleeve, and then my left hand is going to go across right underneath his chin and jaw, and I can either grab my own gi or I can hug my bicep tricep. I'm going to grab my own gi. So what I've basically done is I have created a box here with his neck inside it, and now I'm just going to close that box off. So it's here, here, we shoot cross, grip, grip, and then we squeeze for the choke and the submission. So sode guruma jime, the sleeve wheel choke. Joint locks for this semester, we have a lot of variations of ude garami, the entangled arm lock. You will also hear this referred to as either a kimura or an Americana in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, depending on the position of it. Here would be an Americana, here would be a kimura. For us in Judo, they're all ude garami. Doesn't matter which position the arm is in, it's all the entangled arm lock. The first one is the most basic one. I'll have Mr. Sean sideways. So for this particular one, I'm here. It's kind of in a side control position, maybe like Mune Gatami or Yoko Shiho Gatami. And we usually like to see this demonstrated what we call upper and lower. Upper just meaning his arm is up here. Lower meaning it's turned downward like that. So for the upper version, I'm going to go chest to chest. I'm going to put my elbow on top of his shoulder into his neck. And I would want this knee also sliding up nice and tight. I want to try to isolate his movement and really keep him pinned in there as much as I can. The more room he has to wiggle, the easier he has a chance to get to escape. It's going to be much harder for me to control and finish the arm bar if he's wiggling and moving and almost getting away from me here. So I want to lock him in tight here and here. I'm going to put my 4 fingers right across the top of his wrist like that. My knuckles are up, my palm is down. Then I'm going to slide my other arm underneath his bicep tricep right out by his elbow. Now, the way that I like to do this is instead of really having to do a lot of cranking with lots of motion and movement here, if I just lock this in tight and just slightly rotate my wrist outward like that, then start to pull the elbow down toward his ribs, this gets really, really tight. I could feel him tense right there. If I went much further, he would go ahead and tap. If I wasn't able to get the tap just by pulling toward the ribs, then I will push down with my upper hands and I will slowly lift with my bottom elbow and put a lot of pressure on his shoulder and his elbow joint. So again, we'll grip 4 fingers here, control his head and shoulders with my elbow and leg, go under his bicep tricep, kind of out close to the elbow, rotate the arm outward just a bit, then slide down toward his ribs, just like that. So that would be the upper position for Ude Garami. Lower position, it's turned over. So now my right hand, or the one closest to his belt, is going to grab the top of his hand here. This arm will go underneath his bicep tricep, and I'll grab my own wrist again. I'm going to pull in close to his body. Then I'm going to push down with these hands and then lift upward here on these with my elbow. And again, putting a lot of pressure on the elbow. Most people actually tap because of the shoulder lock that you feel here. This is one of those techniques that we're allowing judo, even though in many cases it really turns into a shoulder lock. But as long as we are executing and placing pressure on the elbow, I hate to say making it look like we're attacking the elbow. That's not exactly what I mean, but that's the best way to describe it. As long as it looks like we're trying to attack the elbow and we just get the shoulder incidentally, then it's okay. What we couldn't do is start to just move the entire arm outward and directly attack the shoulder joint. So that's Ude Garami, upper and lower from the top position. We also have Ude Garami from Kesagatami in this particular set. Mr. Sean turned his head toward the camera again. So in this instance, I am in Kesagatami here. Now it could be that my opponent pops his arm out, or maybe I use this as an attack and pop the arm out myself. I want to make sure that my knee is far up. This would almost be a pillow scarf hold, my knee really high up under his shoulder. And then from here, I'm going to shove his arm downward, just like that. So the palm is up, the knuckles are down. My goal in this case would be to put his wrist and forearm behind this calf muscle. You have to be careful with this because everyone has a different level of flexibility. Some people will tap as soon as you get this arm behind your leg, and sometimes you have to continue to apply more pressure with your leg and hips. So I've got the arm here. I'm going to put his wrist behind my calf, push downward here, and lift up with my hips. Now I could also go here in kind of a sankaku or a leg triangle position. It is also sometimes possible to grab the wrist and just execute Ude Garami here with the arms. Sometimes you can get that, sometimes you can't. But in this particular situation, for this technique, for promotion purposes, I'm referring to putting the arm behind the calf muscle and executing Ude Garami there. Okay, so for our advanced players, we also do have a few more versions of our Ude Garami. Just checking my board here for my notes. So we have 3 different versions. The first one is what I just refer to as a one-arm Ude Garami. And this typically takes place when his arm is in that lower position. So I'm going to set that up here and here. So maybe I wasn't able to finish the lock. Maybe he had grabbed his own belt. For whatever reason, I got here but couldn't finish it. So I'm going to let my upper arm, the one by his shoulder, it's going to grab and hold his wrist and forearm nice and secure. And I'm going to keep it close to his body, not let him push it outward. Then I'm going to sort of slide out my hips and legs. I'm going to kind of start to move my body weight out here. And I'm going to use this hand beside his hips. I might even grab his pants or his hips so he can't start to turn and chase me. And now I'm just going to start moving upward, upward. And then I'll lean forward and I'll lock. ude-garami position right here. As an added benefit, sometimes your bicep will also get far enough under their jaw. Sometimes you can also finish this with a choke if you can't get the arm lock. But usually you can execute the arm lock once you lift them up far enough on their side. Next one is going to be what we call an ude-garami arm crush. And again, this takes place with his arm in this lower position. Particularly in this case, maybe he's grabbed that belt and he's really keeping me from finishing ude-garami. So what I'm going to do is drive my upper arm through as far as I can and hold onto his arm. My lower arm, I'm going to put my elbow right underneath his elbow. And that hand is going to grab tricep. Then my other hand grabs the bicep tricep and I squeeze and lock right here, just like that. So my position is here, here, laced through his arm. So we could also refer to this as maybe an elbow slicer, an elbow wedge. But in this case, for promotion purposes on your sheet, I'm calling it an ude-garami arm crush. When I learned it, they called it an arm crush. Last technique for the advanced players relating to ude-garami is a knee on belly position, and we're actually going to roll and end up with him in our guard so we can finish ude-garami kind of from a traditional position, meaning I'm on my back and he's kind of in my guard. Sometimes you end up in full guard, sometimes you end up more kind of in a half guard position. I'm going to try this with Mr. Sean's head toward the camera, have him come this way just a little bit, and our cameraman will have to let me know if we need to do it from a different position or not. So in this case, I have ude-garami in this lower position, just like this. I'm going to put my left knee by his armpit. And I'm going to bring my bottom knee, my right knee, up onto his belly, just like this. I'm going to lift him up. Then I'm just going to sort of take a roll over his shoulder. So as I roll, I want to try to pull him with me. So I'm going to tuck, roll, and pull him here to guard. And from this position, I can finish kind of a more traditional version of ude-garami that we teach like to our yellow belts in their curriculum from white to yellow, where I push the arm upward toward the back of his head, just like that. So I'll just check with my cameraman. Did we get that? Excellent. Very good. All right, so guys, that's the pins, the chokes, and the joint locks for this semester in our adult curriculum. All right, so we're going to go over the miscellaneous mat work for this semester of our adult judo curriculum. First set of techniques is going to be things everyone needs to work on, novices and advanced ranks. Very first technique is what we call a cowboy turnover, and on your curriculum paper it will say to a choke or to any choke. So literally once you get the turnover and take the back, you can finish with any choke you would like. It could be as simple as a hadaka if you want. So let's just get right into it. So I'm going to have Mr. Sean on his stomach with his head toward you guys as if he's turtled up. So there's a lot of different ways this could happen. This is sort of what we typically kind of do as the textbook version of it, just for demonstration purposes. He's turtled up. I'm going to very quickly hop and grab his belt, lift him up, and I'm going to bring my heels in as much as I can. If I could have my two heels touching underneath him, I would, but I really want my heels kind of almost holding him up off the mat. So I grab him, lift him, tuck in. Now from here, I could go double underhooks and grab his lapel, or I could go with a seat belt, going under one arm, going over the other. I usually like to grab with the double underhooks and take the lapel, but either one is perfectly acceptable. Once you have that grip, you're going to take a roll either corner, that corner or that corner. I'm not going to take him backwards. That's kind of dangerous for my partner's knees, and I don't want to do that. So I'll just grab. I typically like to roll in this direction. Now when you roll him, you want to be sure you're using your heel, your hook, to help pull him along. If you don't use your heel, you'll just kind of fall off of him and he'll start climbing on top of you and pinning you. So I grab him and I take my roll and I pull him with me. So I'm going to have Mr. Sean help me. We're going to spin around so we're facing you guys. So this is where I ended up. I ended up right behind him. I've got my heels in, or we say our hooks in. I don't want to cross my ankles. If we were doing jiu-jitsu or grappling where ankle locks were allowed, he could ankle lock me from here. So I want to just hold him here and here. Now, I can bring my right arm out, come across, and just do hadaka, or maybe my right arm comes out, slides in, and I do an assisted or sliding lapel choke. Any of these techniques would be fine, even kata hajime, the single wing choke. So literally once you're here, whatever choke you want is perfectly acceptable. All right, I'm going to have him on his back with his head toward you guys for this next one. Actually, head toward the flag for Mr. Sean, I apologize. So this is just going to be one of our very basic passes. We call it a step back or a separation pass. So I'm here in his full guard. Remember, we always talk about the 3 basic rules. I want to have a wide base, tall posture, and I want my arms very short, so my elbows are going to be inside. I want to be controlling his hips with him, keeping them down. My right knee goes into his tailbone, and my left knee is going to pop up, but also step way back. We call that opening the door or opening the gate. I want to have it far enough back he can't grab it, and I'm also using that big push to open up his guard. So as soon as I do that, my left hand comes off of his hip, slides up his thigh, grabs the inside of his pants, and I'm going to do something we call stapling. I want to staple his leg to the mat. So the front of my knee is going to touch the mat in front of his leg, but my toes will stay on the mat behind. So I go here, and then I staple. Knee touches there, toes stay here. And it's important we keep that. If I step over, he catches me in the half guard, which makes it a lot harder for me to finish my pass. So I want to keep stapled here. I'm going to now put some pressure on his chest, drive my left arm behind his head. Here, like this. I like to use my other hand to kind of hold his leg off of me. It would be hard for him to completely stop me, but he could entangle this leg and make it harder for me to get away. So if I can grab this leg and sort of control it, I'll clear my back leg, then remove my staple, then finish with the pin. So let's see that with his head facing the other way real quick. Here, 1, 2. Staple, put some pressure, clear the back leg, front leg. I've got this grip, so sometimes I'll use that to just go ahead and drive that down. Kind of end up in a modified Yoko Shiho Gatame position right there. So that's our separation or step back pass. Next we have the arm sweep and roll. So I'm going to have him in my guard, and I'll put my head towards you guys for this particular technique. I've also heard this one referred to as a care package or a gift wrap in some cases. We just call it an arm sweep and roll. So I've got him here in my guard. I'm going to use my both hands versus his one right arm. And I want to pull his arm across between us and also start to drive it upward. I find it helps me a lot if, as I'm moving his arm that way, if I sort of shrimp out a little bit and turn up on my side. I don't want to get too far away, but as I'm bringing his arm over, I'll sort of shrimp out. And that lets him fall down kind of where I used to lay. And it lets me take my left arm, reach around behind his neck and back, and grab. Now I can grab his wrist, grab his gi. I might even just grab the bare skin. I want to try to avoid just grabbing his fingers or thumb. I don't want to do a finger lock and get disqualified or hurt my partner either. So if I can get the gi, that would be great. If not, I can just wrap and grab right here. Now I'm going to pull and move everything in that direction. So I'm going to push and pull. Now keep this, because this can become a part of your pin. This could even become a modified version of that kata gatame that we saw a little earlier in the video. So this is perfectly legal and valid as part of a judo pin. I would be in kind of a highly modified tate shiho gatame. If I switch to the side here, then it could turn into a kata gatame, a shoulder hold. So arm, sweep, and roll from the guard. Our next one is another sweep. This is called the pendulum sweep. It's also sometimes referred to as a flower sweep. It's one of my more preferred sweeps. I really like it when executed correctly. It's really hard to defend. So I'll have Mr. Sean here in my guard again. So I'm going to get control of this arm and trap his elbow to my center line. I'm going to do everything as if I'm going for Juji Gatame, the crossbody armbar from the guard. So I'll put my foot to his hip, close the elbow in. In this case, I'm holding his lapel here for just a second. And everything I do is going to be like I'm going for Juji Gatame. I'm going to go ahead and do an arm dive version for this. So I dive this arm down as I make my transition to the side. Now, if my opponent stays outward with enough space that I could bring this leg over, I'll just finish with Juji Gatame. But for this technique, we're going to say my opponent kind of cranks his head in. He kind of really turtles that head up, and I'm having a hard time getting over it. So I'm going to bring the leg up as far as I can, throw it out and let it swing around in an arc and try to get it low down by his knee. At the same time, the hand that did the leg dive is going to push over. So I go here and drive with this hand all the way up top and settle in for tate shiho tatami. So the pendulum or flower sweep. Real important with that one that your leg goes out and circles around. If you're there and you just throw your leg straight out, then a lot of times the opponent ends up laying on your leg. So you get kind of stuck, and you're kind of just stuck. You're both laying on your side, facing each other. You can't really finish the sweep. But if you swing that leg around down low by his legs, it makes it a lot easier to go ahead and get him all the way over and for you to get on top. Okay, so that's all the techniques that the novices need to be concerned with this semester. All right, guys, we're going to cover the advanced techniques for the miscellaneous mat work for this semester in the adult judo curriculum. So we've covered the ones that everybody has to do, the novices and the advanced. These techniques are just for the advanced ranks, typically brown belts and above. So the first one is a choking technique versus the turtle. And when I originally learned this, we called it a crossbow choke. I think these days it's more commonly known as a bow and arrow choke. It's the same technique though. So Mr. Josh is going to help me out with this. He's going to be on his hands and knees with his head that way for me. So somehow we ended up here where he's turtled, maybe from a failed throw. Maybe he tried to do a drop knee shoulder throw and I spun out to the side. He went for a double leg takedown. I sprawl and circle to the side. But at any rate, we've ended up here, and I want to execute this, this crossbow or bow and arrow choke. So my upper hand, the one closest to his head, is going to go over his shoulder, going to go thumb in on his lapel here. Then my back leg, the one closest to his hips, it's going to actually step over, and I want to drive my heel right down here. So I step over and I drive this in. And I want to try to keep myself pointing at a 90-degree angle as much as I can. So not so much here, but more here. Now from this position, I could just grab the pant leg, I could grab his shin by his ankle, or I might be able to scoop through and grab his inner thigh. But I want to grab his leg in some fashion, tuck my head, and take a roll. Now when you take the roll, it's important, this leg that we've tucked in, I want to use that heel like a hook to help pull him over. So this leg has an important job to do. It's not just going to stand here. It's going to help bring him over. So I'm going to hook that leg, tuck my head, and roll all the way over here. So it's important for judo purposes that we don't execute a spine lock. I'm going to loosen up this choke on Mr. Josh since I'm talking. It's important that I try to get my partner, my opponent, mostly on his back with his side toward me. So I want him here. I could pull here and pull here. And if I bend him in half this way for the choke, that's perfectly legal in judo. But sometimes if our position on the roll wasn't exactly right, we'll end up with our opponent or our partner sort of on their side like this. And it's important to know for judo purposes, if I start cranking here so that I'm actually taking his back and bending it this way, the way it's not intended to bend, that would be a disqualification in judo. It would be considered hansoku maki. So as you practice this technique, you want to figure out how you need to position your body as you start the roll so that you end up with your opponent more on his side. Sometimes you can modify it. Sometimes we end up here and I can just sort of pull him onto his back and then execute the choke, and that works out fine. But sometimes they're just too far over and it's not going to happen. Okay? So that's our bow and arrow or crossbow choke. In that particular case versus a turtle, there are other entries like from the rear, seated mount, things like that. For this semester, we're going to work on it versus the turtle. Okay, next technique is actually kind of a sequence of attacks starting with a guard pass. So he's going to be on his back, I'm going to be in his guard. So most commonly I hear this referred to as an over-under pass. I learned it as what's called a half stack. A full stack, I would be pushing both of his legs forward. Half, I would just be using one of his legs. So half stack pass or over-under pass, whatever you'd like to call it. But conceptually what I want to do is have this leg on my shoulder, and I want to be slightly hyperextending it. Not enough necessarily to make him tap, but I don't want his knee able to bend and him start to chomp down and execute sankakus and things like that. So what I like to think about doing is grabbing right on his thigh and then hugging that into my body and trying to lock that knee out straight. With this arm, really important that I don't let this knee go under my armpit. So I like to grab here on the inner thigh and then close my elbow down to my hip or thigh, here and here. So the half stack comes in because I drive this leg forward, start to stack him up. Once you're here, right thumb goes inside the collar. So the first one would just be our pass, here, just like that. Secondary to that, it might be that I start to pass to that side, but he manages to get his hand on my hip and he blocks me. Sometimes we can catch a wrist lock there, just depends on how good the other guy is and exactly where he puts his hand. I don't ever count on it, so I like to be able to pass the other direction. So everything's the same, we start stacking, we're here, and as I pass, he's blocking me here. So instead of losing this position, my right leg is now going to staple, control his upper body, and then this leg takes a big back step, and then I execute the pass to the other side. So that's the second part to this. The third part is a choke. So here we go. We're starting our half stack. We got control here, isolating it so he can't go under our armpit, stacking him up. So he blocks my hip this time, and I can't pass that way. Maybe he manages to get this foot on my hip and thigh over here, so now I can't pass that way. So he's starting to recover position here. I don't want that. So I'm going to keep this. Right hand's going to release, go right through, grab the back of his pants or belt, lift him up, and execute katate jame, the one-arm choke, also called a paper cutter or bread cutter. So this was thumbs in, forearm across the neck. I grabbed the back of his pants or his belt, lifted him up, and I'm actually sort of bending him in half, compressing him. So this is kind of a twofold attack. We're crushing his windpipe, which is very painful, makes it hard to breathe, and I'm also compressing his center. I'm squeezing all the air out of him, making it really hard for him to fill his lungs with air. So usually they're going to tap because of this, but it is an added bonus. They a lot of times will start to kind of feel very panicky when they can't get a good breath into their lungs because you're bending them in half. So that's the three-part attack there, the over-under. We have the pass to one side, pass to the other, or we have the choke, the katate jame or paper cutter choke, one-arm choke. Last, we have two techniques that happen as sweeps utilizing the arm lasso. So I'll be on my back. I'll have Mr. Josh here in my guard. So for these, we want to have control of both sleeves, and I have to make a little room, so I usually have to sort of shrimp out a bit. So I go from here, my left foot goes to his hip, I shrimp out and turn slightly to my left side. Right leg is going to go up, it's going to go over this arm, so it's up and over. As it crosses, I'm going to hook it under the opposite armpit. And when I hook here, I'm going to use that as a trigger to transition from my left side back to my right side. This foot goes to the mat, I bridge with it, and I kick here with this leg. Now we have a lot of finishes. We could spin for Jujigatami. We could put our Achilles heel or tendon into his elbow, sit up, do a bicep crush or elbow wedge, or I could hold this arm, release this arm as I kick, and hip switch my way into a pin. So a lot of different options you have there. Perfectly okay to just sweep and get the pin. The next one is almost exactly the same, but we are going to use our shin. So we're going to actually kick our leg straight up at the ceiling. So we're here. Starts the same. Control the sleeves, left hip, space, get to my left side, up, over. As I go here, same transition. So now, instead of relying on this leg straightening out, instead, I'm going to take my foot and I'm going to just drive it straight up. So I use this foot here and I push straight up. And see, as I straighten it out, my shin slides up, starts to create this big off balance. And from there, it's a pretty simple matter to just totter him over, and our finishes could be the same. Spin to juji, lock the elbow, take the pin. We could even go into a wrist press if we wanted to. All right, so those are the techniques for the advanced ranks in the miscellaneous mat work category for this semester of our adult judo curriculum. Thank you, Mr. Josh. All right, guys, see you on the mats. All right, guys, Sensei James Wall here. I'm back with Mr. Sean. We're going to be doing the self-defense techniques for this semester of the adult judo curriculum. We have 4 in this semester, and they all take place from a standing position. First one, the bad guy tries to do a pretty decent double leg takedown or a rotate guard. Maybe he wrestled some in high school or something like that. So he tries kind of a rotate guard. We're going to do what we call a sprawl and crush. So it's important for this one that I get my hands and forearms onto his shoulders and back, and that I really kick my legs way back so he can't get a grip on them and really take one or both out from under me. So we'll be right here. We're kind of in this self-defense posture. We're not doing anything judo gripping. When he shoots in, my legs have to go back, and I got to get some hand control on his upper body. So he shoots, I sprawl, and I really crush. Sometimes the guy will go flat down, sometimes he'll end up on his hands and knees. Doesn't matter. The real important part of this is what just happened. That is that I sprawled and shut down his double leg. I don't want him putting me on my back, maybe hitting my head, maybe he passes my guard before I can stop him. From here, there's a lot of different things you could do, and for promotion purposes, I'm going to kind of leave it open to you guys. What we did do earlier in the semester curriculum was we videoed, we showed how you could do a cowboy turnover. So it might just be that I sprawled and crushed, then I immediately spun, gripped his belt, hooked him up, rolled him over, and executed a dakajime. That would be perfectly sufficient for self-defense techniques. It could also be that I sprawl and crush. Here, I might just hold him as I start to drive knee strikes into his top of his head and side of his head. So that would be sufficient as well. Just understand for your promotion, what I do want to see is some type of finish, not just the sprawl and crush. Because at best, maybe you knocked the wind out of him, maybe you bloodied his nose a little bit. He's still probably got some fight in him. So I want you to do something to finish that. Okay? Next technique seems similar, the attack. We call it a standing charge. And the way that I differentiate it is, if he's doing a double leg, a rotate gari, he's going to lower himself down and shoot at my waist or knees. With a standing charge, he's just coming at me. Maybe he wants to grab me. Maybe he's trying to choke me. He could be charging and throwing a punch. It doesn't matter. Usually for demonstration purposes, we have the opponent sort of charge and try to grab us, just like that. For this, what I want you to think about is the fact that he's generating a lot of force, a lot of momentum. And we don't necessarily want to try to stop that momentum. Even with the first one we did, I didn't stand in one place and stop his momentum. I sprawled back and I let his momentum continue partially under me, and I just redirected it into the ground and kind of ground it out. In this case, I'm going to get off the line of attack. I'm going to move in a circular way to get away from him. And I'm a righty, so I'm going to move here to my right. I'm going to use my left hand to get up and to protect my face, try to get inside of his right arm, and my left hand, I'm going to cup it, go right behind his head. So as Mr. Sean charges, I'm going to grab here, I'm going to cup here, but I need to continue my circle. Let his motion keep moving, not stopping it, but I am slightly redirecting it. He was going that way. I'm just going to pull him around this way in a circle. So we'll see it again. I won't stop and talk it through. You can back up even a little bit more, Mr. Sean. There we go. So he's here. He comes at me. So here. And I just move out of his way. Now, in this instance, maybe that's enough that I can make a getaway. Maybe there were some chairs or tables or other people. I threw him into those. Or maybe as soon as he hits the ground, I'm on top of him. For promotion purposes, it'll be sufficient if you throw them, make a quick getaway. We'll accept that in this instance. It's more of a survival tactic, just survive and run. Next one is a jab to the head, left jab in this case. The technique we're going to do, just for our basic promotion purposes, is straight out of Goshin Jitsu Kata. So it might be good to show it from this side. So he's going to do a left jab as if he's punching me right here in my face. Just do it and stop. Boom, just like that. Okay. So kind of the same thing here. I'm not going to stand in one spot. Move out in a circle, and I'm going to get this up kind of as an outside block. I've never studied karate or taekwondo. There's lots of different names for this type of block. I just call it a high outside block. So I want to turn and block that hand. There are some styles that also teach this as a strike. I would actually be trying to strike his elbow to hurt his elbow. Nothing wrong with that. But my main goal is he doesn't punch me and he's not easily able to grab me again. As soon as I've made that block, my right hand is already coming to punch him right in the lower rib cage, here. I'm then going to just continue my motion behind him, let my right arm go around his neck, execute a dakajime. So it's block and strike, turn and grab, here. Choke, choke, he taps, and I'm just going to let him do a back fall. So that's kind of the finish we would like to see. Now again, as I've said many times before, you advanced students, brown and black belts with lots of training, you feel free to modify or change the self-defense techniques. These are the attacks I want to see. I'm showing you one possible textbook type defense. You can change it. It just needs to make sense. It needs to be something that looks at least somewhat believable and practical to me. All right, last one is going to be a right cross to the head. So again, I'm here. We're kind of in this defensive position. I've got my fence up. When he throws that cross, I'm going to move into it and bring this fence with me. So important thing here, I'm not trying to catch his hand or arm. I'm putting a fence up that covers from here all the way to here. I know that hand is coming in this area, and I'm not going to stand here and let it reach maximum velocity. I'm going to move in and stop it. So as he throws that punch, I move into it. I generally aim my forearm for their elbow joint, but it could be their forearm or their bicep. But I am definitely hitting his arm, not just his shoulder. Sometimes you hit the shoulder, the punch will continue and still catch you in the jaw or temple, might even knock you out depending on just how hard he's punching. So one more time, he throws that strike, so I bring my fence in to block it. Simultaneously, I'm making what we call a Y with my right hand, and it's going to come upward and strike him in the throat. Strike to the throat, my left hand wraps and controls. This could just keep a grip on his throat. For our opponent's safety, for our partner's safety, for demo purposes, I'm going to go ahead and take a lapel grip, or I might just reach and grab him like this. Then I'm going to come through and throw a big osotogari. We're going to do that one from the other side so you guys can see that Y strike. So I've got my hands up here. The punch comes. I block, throat strike, wrap. You can grab here or here. Again, I'm just doing that to take care of my partner in the demo. In reality, this strike would turn into a grab, and I would throw, and I would be driving his head down toward the concrete as hard as I could. In this case, I'll strike, grab him, and then I would throw my osotogari. All right, guys, those are your self-defense techniques for this semester. Have some fun stuff, some stand-up self-defense work that it's good to practice. These are all good, basic things. These are common attacks you very well might encounter, so be sure you work hard on these.